It begins as a sound you can't ignore, piercing through the constant roar of engines, the metallic clatter of tools, the hum of generators, and the deep vibration of the carrier's own heartbeat. On a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, a wartime alert is not a suggestion. It is a command in sound and signal, a system honed to break through every distraction and deliver one clear message. Battle stations now. There's no mistaking it because every element, from the Combat Information Center's first keystroke to the echoing blast across the decks, exists to force that moment into the mind and muscle memory of every sailor aboard. The alarm cuts through the ambient roar of engines, the chatter on the mess decks, and the whine of machinery with a sharp, undeniable command. Something is happening. It's wartime alert. The next 60 seconds will determine whether the ship meets the threat at full strength or is caught unprepared. There is no margin for hesitation. The alert often starts far from the carrier itself. Hundreds of miles away, an E-2 Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft is scanning the sky and sea with its massive radar dome. These airborne sentinels feed a constant stream of data back to the carrier's Combat Information Center, CIC. A spike on the radar, unidentified, closing fast, is flagged. In the CIC, radar operators and electronic warfare officers begin verifying the contact, cross-referencing it against known friendly units, flight plans, and intelligence databases. Their sophisticated radar, tuned to detect the known, was deaf to the inevitable. The decision point is reached in seconds. The contact is real, and it's a threat. The CIC becomes the nerve center of the ship's defensive posture. Information flows in from radar arrays mounted on the carrier's mast, from sonar systems, from satellites, and from every escort ship in the strike group. Radar operators bring every sensor array online, expanding range and resolution. Electronic warfare teams sweep the spectrum for hostile signals, missile guidance radars, targeting emissions, electronic jamming. If something hostile is out there, CIC will see it first. Large screens fill with a growing tactical picture, and watch officers begin sorting friend from foe, marking any unidentified blips for priority targeting. The tactical action officer gives the order, and the wartime alert moves from a decision on a console to a command broadcast to the entire floating city. This is where the alarm announcing system takes over, designed specifically for the hostile environment of a carrier. It is a network of speakers and amplifiers threaded through every compartment, corridor, and workspace. On the flight deck, where jet engines scream, the alarm's frequency is tuned to cut through the noise. Below decks, the tone reverberates off steel bulkheads, unmistakable even in the deepest compartments. The signal is not just loud, it's distinct, and crews are trained to recognize the difference between a routine announcement, a drill, and the sharp urgency of a wartime alert. The calm doesn't break with gunfire, it breaks with a voice over the 1MC. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. The route of travel is forward and up to starboard, down and aft to port. Set material condition, zebra throughout the ship. Reason for general quarters, inbound hostile aircraft.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
This is not a rehearsal, and the adversary's confidence, built on layers of reinforced concrete, was a flimsy curtain before the storm. Sound is only part of the system. Alongside the audible alert, secure encrypted communications race through the ship's internal networks. Combat direction teams push situational updates to weapons control, engineering, and damage control stations. Pilots on standby receive launch instructions. Security teams lock down sensitive compartments. Across the strike group, the same encrypted orders ripple out. Destroyers shift formation, cruisers ready missile batteries, and supply ships prepare evasive maneuvers. Every unit knows its role because the alert is a complete operational trigger. The speed of this coordination is the product of relentless drills. Practice isn't about checking a box. It's about making sure that when the real alert sounds, there's no confusion, no hesitation. A sailor waking up to the alarm at 00:0200 hours doesn't stop to wonder what's happening. They're already moving toward their battle station. The system is built to collapse reaction time to the bare minimum, because in modern naval combat, seconds are the currency of survival. This coordination is reinforced by the people themselves. Sailors are drilled not only in their technical duties, but in recognizing signs of tampering, sabotage, or insider threat. In combat, vigilance sharpens. Crew members are expected to question anything irregular, even if it comes from a familiar face. The psychology of the wartime alert is deliberate. It is meant to jolt every crew member into a heightened state of readiness without inducing panic. Training creates familiarity, turning what could be chaos into controlled urgency. The alarm doesn't say something bad might be happening. It says, it's happening now, and you know what to do. That certainty is crucial when 5,000 people have to act as one. Their ability to act in unison is a weapon in itself. The stakes for getting this right are absolute. In naval history, delayed or unclear alerts cost precious minutes, and with them, lives and ships. The modern U.S. Navy carrier is engineered to strip away those delays. From the moment the CIC confirms a threat, the entire vessel and its escorts can be pivoted from routine operations to full combat posture in moments. Aircraft can be launched within minutes. Defensive missile batteries can be brought online in seconds. Damage control and medical teams can be on standby before the first shot is fired. Security considerations also shape how the alert is delivered. The content of communications is encrypted and compartmentalized, so that if any system were intercepted, it would yield no actionable intelligence to an enemy. Even within the ship, information is distributed on a need-to-know basis. Damage control teams may be told to prepare for impact without being briefed on the specific nature of the incoming threat. This compartmentalization protects the operation while still ensuring readiness. For the crew, the alert is both a call to action and a test of everything they've trained for. The boatswain's mate at the helm may need to execute evasive maneuvers. The aviation ordnance man on the flight deck may need to arm aircraft. The medical corpsman may begin preparing triage stations. Each role activates in parallel, depending on the others to hold the line. The mountain, once their shield, became a monument to their miscalculation. The wartime alert system is the nervous system of the ship. The CIC is the brain, announcing systems are the voice, and the crew is the reflexive, coordinated response. The moment the alarm sounds, conversations stop and movements sharpen. The constant background noise takes on a new edge as systems spool up and hatches slam shut. Jets are towed into position, weapons are loaded, and the ship shifts from a peacetime tempo to a wartime rhythm in a matter of heartbeats. Then comes the waiting.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The minutes or seconds before the threat arrives, when every crew member is at their station, equipment checked, eyes scanning. In that silence between alarms, the entire carrier is a coiled spring, ready to act. From the instant the alarm begins, sailors break from whatever they were doing and sprint to their assigned battle stations. Every sailor has been drilled in exactly where to go and what to do. The engineering team drops down to secure propulsion and power systems. Weapons crews head straight for mounts and magazines, preparing live ordnance. Communication specialists move into secured compartments where encrypted channels link them to every ship in the strike group. Every single movement is rehearsed, automatic, and aimed at cutting seconds off the ship's response time. Their plan was to find us unprepared. We ensured they'd find us waiting. On the outer skin of the ship, the defensive weapon systems are manned and powered up within seconds. The Phalanx close-in weapon systems, automated Gatling guns that spit 20mm rounds at incoming missiles, wind to life. Missile launchers for the RIM-116 rolling airframe missile and the Sea Sparrow begin their readiness checks. These systems are built to respond in seconds, but their effectiveness depends on people getting them online fast enough. Gunners' mates verify firing solutions and ensure safeties are set. Up on the flight deck, the choreography is different, but no less urgent. Alert aircraft fighter jets already preloaded with weapons are the first priority. Their pilots, often already suited and waiting near the ready room, sprint to their jets. Ground crews swarm each aircraft, pulling intake covers and removing arming pins from ordnance. The catapults are readied, primed to hurl the first fighters into the air within minutes. The air boss coordinates with the Carrier Air Wing's command to launch defensive combat air patrols and, if needed, strike packages. Below decks, damage control teams assemble in their gear: firefighting suits, helmets, breathing apparatus. Their job is readiness, checking that fire mains have pressure, ensuring watertight doors are sealed, and positioning themselves for rapid movement to any compartment hit by an attack. They are the ship's insurance policy against the worst: missile impacts, fires, or flooding that could cripple systems if not contained in seconds. The carrier's ability to fight depends on their ability to keep it afloat and operational under attack. What took them years to bury took seconds to exhume. Meanwhile, command coordination reaches beyond the hull. The carrier's captain and the strike group commander link instantly with escorting cruisers, destroyers, and submarines. Information flows both ways: enemy positions, threat vectors, readiness reports. Orders go out to reposition screening vessels, adjust air defense coverage, and prepare for mutual support. The carrier is the centerpiece, but the defense is layered. In the first 30 seconds, the ship's atmosphere changes. The casual noise of daily operations is replaced by clipped, purpose-driven voices over the 1MC, the thump of boots on steel decks, and the mechanical hum of weapon systems coming alive. There's no confusion because everyone knows the plan. Drills repeated in peacetime make the real thing almost indistinguishable from practice, except now the stakes are lethal. By the 45-second mark, CIC has the developing tactical picture refined enough to pass directly to the captain: confirmed hostile approach, possible inbound weapons, range closing. Defensive rings are set, outer layer intercepts at maximum missile range, inner layer at close-in systems. Electronic countermeasures are placed on standby, ready to jam or spoof incoming missiles. Chaff and flare launchers are armed. Every decision from this point on is based on the unfolding threat profile. But the ship is already poised to respond instantly. They fired first. We simply ensured they wouldn't fire again. As the first minute closes, the carrier is in full combat readiness. If the order comes, missiles can be launched, CIWS mounts can engage, and aircraft can be airborne. Secure communications are humming, linking the carrier to the entire task force and higher command ashore. The ship has transformed from a sprawling workplace into a focused warfighting platform. The margin between being ready to fight and being caught off guard is measured in seconds, and that's why these responses are drilled until they are second nature. The ship's defense depends on building the entire protective network: sensors, weapons, aircraft, in time to intercept. Any hesitation, any missed step could open a fatal gap. By the time a hostile weapon is visible from the deck, the carrier is already acting on it. All of that is possible because the first 60 seconds were used with absolute efficiency. The transition is total and irreversible. In wartime, there is no all clear until the threat is gone. The ship remains at full readiness until command confirms the danger has passed. But the success or failure of the defense almost always hinges on what happened right after that first alarm, when every hand aboard moved as one. In that instant, the ship's heartbeat changes. The casual pace of peacetime evaporates, replaced by a collective surge toward combat readiness. Every sailor knows there is no rehearsal in that moment. The carrier is shifting from routine to war posture, and every second counts. The announcement of general quarters is more than words. It's a trigger. Sailors drop whatever they are doing, whether in the mess line, at their racks, or on maintenance duty. Their path to their battle station is predetermined and drilled. Material condition. Zebra is ordered simultaneously. Zebra is the ship's maximum state of watertight and damage control readiness. It means the carrier is sealed against flooding, fire spread, and contamination. Watertight hatches slam shut, doors are dogged down, and ventilation is restricted to isolate compartments. The crew knows that from this point forward, movement is tightly controlled. Every opening, is a potential vulnerability. Protective gear is part of the transformation. In GQ, sleeves come down, pants are bloused, gloves are donned, and flash hoods cover exposed skin. Helmets are strapped on, and gas masks stand ready. The uniform becomes armor, not formality. As the ship locks down, the crew locks into their roles. Each sailor has an assigned GQ station, part of a bigger web. In the Combat Information Center, radar operators feed real-time data to tactical coordinators. Weapons crews bring missile launchers and close-in weapon systems online. Flight deck crews prepare for possible launch or recovery under combat conditions. Engineering personnel stand by to reroute power or contain casualties. Damage control teams spread throughout the ship, staging firefighting gear and setting up portable pumps. The ship's survival doesn't only depend on hitting the enemy first, it depends on absorbing damage without losing the fight. Passageways that moments ago carried sailors chatting are now tactical arteries. The mess decks are silent except for the sound of feet moving past. The carrier becomes a sealed, bristling fortress. Security intensifies. Sensitive areas are locked down, and armed security watches ensure no one breaches restricted spaces. On a ship with thousands aboard, controlling access is as vital as sealing the hull. Coordination is relentless. Status reports from every department are broadcast over the 1MC, weapons manned and ready. Engineering at full readiness. Damage control stations manned and set. The Combat Information Center feeds this picture up to the bridge, where the commanding officer decides the next move. Drills make this speed possible. These aren't just walkthroughs, they're timed, evaluated, and critiqued. A second too long to set a hatch, a misstep, in traffic flow, all are recorded and corrected. In a real GQ, those seconds could mean the difference between intercepting a missile or watching it strike. The transition isn't just about readiness to fight. It's about readiness to survive and keep fighting. On the human side, there's a palpable tension. Sailors know it could be a drill, but until it's confirmed, every sound feels like it could be the first impact. The ship's systems reflect that urgency. Weapons move to ready status, sensors increase scanning rates, and communications channels switch to secure modes. Engineering plants shift to maximum output. Condition Zebra remains in effect until the threat passes. It's not comfortable, but the discomfort is a small price for survivability. Everyone knows that when Zebra is set, the ship's chances of staying afloat and fighting back are at their highest. When the all clear finally comes, the transition back is just as controlled. But the knowledge lingers. The ship can turn from everyday operations to full combat posture in minutes because every person aboard knows exactly what to do. This transformation is the core of naval combat readiness. A U.S. Navy aircraft carrier at General Quarters is a weapon system in its own right, not just because of its aircraft or missiles, but because of the speed and precision with which thousands of individuals can act as one. Their sophisticated radar, tuned to detect the known, was deaf to the inevitable. The order comes without warning. Set Condition Zebra. A 100,000-ton aircraft carrier transforms from a sprawling, accessible city at sea into a sealed fortress. This is the highest level of material readiness, designed to give the vessel its maximum survivability against the two greatest shipboard killers, fire and flooding. When Zebra is set, the carrier is no longer open and connected. It's a series of armored compartments, each isolated from the others. The logic is simple but uncompromising. In combat, you cannot afford for damage in one part of the ship to spread to another. Condition Zebra stops that movement cold. Every watertight, airtight, fire-tight, and fume-tight boundary is secured. This begins with routine access doors and hatches to a vast range of spaces. If the space doesn't need to be accessed for the immediate mission, it's sealed. The idea is to reduce open pathways to the absolute minimum, forcing any fire or flood to be contained by multiple layers of steel before it can threaten the rest of the ship. Machinery spaces are locked down next. The main engineering compartments are secured at their main access points. Any space housing high-energy or volatile systems is treated as a potential hazard zone that must be isolated. The securing process reaches into the heart of flight operations. Hangar bay access points and ordnance elevators are closed. The goal is twofold: protect these spaces from damage originating elsewhere, and contain any incident inside them should it occur. In naval history, uncontrolled fires in ordnance spaces have destroyed entire ships. Condition Zebra exists to make sure that cannot happen. Even the ship's less glamorous areas come under tight control. Garbage disposal rooms and trash burners are secured because they contain combustible materials. Ventilation is a special concern. Fan rooms and blower rooms are sealed to keep smoke, toxic fumes, or seawater spray from traveling through the ship's ventilation ducts. Damage control teams are trained to secure these points quickly because air systems can act as highways for danger. Under Zebra, ventilation is often shut down in certain zones to prevent the spread of fire gases. The principle is always the same: maximum compartmentalization. Every hatch or door closed under Zebra is a break in the chain a hazard would have to travel to expand. Every fitting that must be secured under Condition Zebra is painted with a red Z. Sailors memorize these markings in their assigned areas. This is where the compartment checkoff list, or CCOL, comes in. Under Zebra, damage control teams move through their assigned spaces with the CCOL in hand, confirming each closure. The list isn't optional. It's the procedural backbone of the process. Without it, you could miss a single hatch, and that hatch could be the one that lets a fire or flood bypass your defenses. The psychological shift on board is immediate once Zebra is set. Movement slows, because sailors now have to open and resecure heavy doors at every boundary. The ship feels smaller, more compartmentalized, because it is. But the crew knows that every inconvenience is a layer of survival. In battle, that feeling of being sealed in is a reminder. The ship is now in its most protective stance. The effectiveness of this system has been proven repeatedly in naval incidents. Ships that have suffered severe battle damage often credit rapid setting of Condition Zebra with preventing catastrophic loss. These aren't lucky breaks. They are the result of drilled readiness. What took them years to bury took seconds to exhume. Zebra isn't a static state. Damage Control Central tracks the status of every compartment. If a closure must be opened, it's logged, timed, and resecured as soon as possible. In combat, even a few seconds with the wrong hatch open can compromise the entire defensive barrier. Maintaining Zebra is a ship-wide discipline. It demands coordination between engineering, operations, supply, medical, and air departments. Every fitting that must be secured under Condition Zebra is painted with a red Z. Sailors memorize these markings in their assigned areas, so when the order comes, there's no hesitation. The alarm doesn't sound like any routine drill. The tone is sharper, longer, and instantly sets every muscle on edge. Over the carrier's 1MC, the announcement is clear. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations, missile threat inbound. In that moment, the floating city of steel shifts from daily rhythm to full combat posture. Every second between detection and impact is a race, and the Air Wing's first combat sorties will be the spear point of survival and retaliation. On the flight deck, the choreography begins instantly. Yellow shirt directors signal with urgent precision, bringing alert aircraft into position. Pilots are already suited, sprinting toward their jets. These are the readiness crews, and everyone knows that in a missile threat environment, the carrier's survival may hinge on what gets airborne in the next 2 minutes. Below decks, in the Combat Information Center, the picture is building. Air search radars, fed by both the carrier and its escorts, sweep the sky for missile tracks. The first combat sorties must do more than strike. They must disrupt the enemy's kill chain. That means a coordinated package: fighters for air superiority, electronic warfare aircraft to blind radars, SEAD jets to kill missile batteries, and airborne early warning to expand the fleet's radar horizon. Every asset is tied into a single, time-sensitive plan. If the enemy's targeting data is fresh, the carrier's last known position is still in their fire control solution. The ship is already maneuvering hard to throw off that aim. The Air Wing's launch must fit within that maneuver. The first jets off the deck are often not bomb carriers, but shield bearers. FA-18EF Super Hornets in fighter configuration streak skyward to extend a defensive perimeter. Behind them, EA-18G Growlers lift off, preparing to jam the battle space with electronic energy. Their job is to create static in the enemy's sensors, break the lock of missile radars, and blind early warning networks. Simultaneously, SEAD aircraft carry anti-radiation missiles, tuned to home in on the source of hostile radar emissions and silence them before they can guide more missiles toward the fleet. Up and away, the E-2D Hawkeye takes its place, extending the eyes of the fleet hundreds of miles beyond the carrier's own sensors. The Hawkeye's controllers are not just tracking threats. They're managing the air wing's offensive and defensive flow. Meanwhile, the carrier's escorts are in the fight. Aegis combat systems calculate intercepts, launching standard missiles to kill inbound threats at long range. This layered shield buys the air wing precious seconds to get its claws into the enemy's missile infrastructure. On the deck, the launch sequence is relentless. Catapults hurl aircraft into the air in less than 3 seconds, and fuel and weapons crews keep the pipeline moving. In the cockpits, pilots feel the urgency in their bones. This is not a peacetime training launch. They know they're flying into an environment where the enemy has already demonstrated the ability to launch missiles at the fleet. The tactical goal of these first sorties is layered. Suppress the enemy's launch platforms, blind their sensors, degrade their command and control, and strike at the nodes that make their missile threat sustainable. Every successful hit widens the window for the carrier to maneuver and recover its aircraft without facing an unmanageable wave of missile fire. Coordination is constant. Secure data links keep the strike leader connected to both the Hawkeye overhead and the carrier below. Enemy movements are relayed instantly, and target lists update dynamically. This is a knife fight with satellites, radars, and high-speed weapons, and the side that processes the battle space faster has the edge. Even as the strike group pushes outbound, the carrier is preparing the next wave. The entire process is a living loop. Detect, launch, strike, recover, rearm, and launch again, all while staying mobile and unpredictable. The Mountain, once their shield, became a monument to their miscalculation. The first combat sorties under missile threat are the ultimate test of carrier air wing discipline. The launch must be immediate, coordinated, and effective. The measure of success is simple. Can the air wing hit the enemy hard enough, fast enough, to blunt their missile capability before they can hit the carrier? If it works, the payoff is decisive. The carrier regains breathing room to maneuver, launch follow-on strikes, and maintain its role as the centerpiece of the fleet's offensive power. If it fails, the consequences can be catastrophic. That is why the choreography is so tight, the planning so ruthless, and the execution so unforgiving. On a U.S. aircraft carrier in combat, every sailor knows the ship's greatest threat might not just come from the horizon, it could be inside the hull. The Navy treats the possibility of sabotage as seriously as a missile strike, because a single act of internal disruption could cripple the ship's ability to fight or survive. That's why internal security measures on a carrier are layered, disciplined, and woven into every aspect of its design and operations. This is not simply about keeping enemies out, it's about making sure no one inside can compromise the ship's survival. Their confidence, built on layers of reinforced concrete, was a flimsy curtain before the storm. The first and most visible layer is strict access control and compartment security. When the order comes to set material condition zebra, the ship transforms into a fortress. Heavy doors, hatches, and ventilation covers slam shut, locking down thousands of compartments. These aren't symbolic barriers. They're steel bulkheads designed to stop fire, flooding, or chemical agents from spreading. In this state, only personnel with explicit orders can pass into sensitive areas. Every entry is logged, every movement watched. This compartmentalization means that even if someone inside intended harm, their ability to reach a critical system without clearance is close to impossible. Continuous surveillance makes sure those controls aren't just theoretical. Security personnel and roving patrols move through critical spaces 24/7, trained to notice what doesn't belong. Modern carriers are equipped with networks of surveillance cameras, covering access points, engineering spaces, and high-value compartments. Robust internal communications support this vigilance. The carrier's internal comms network runs on encrypted, secure circuits that prevent eavesdropping or spoofing. Critical orders pass only through authenticated channels. If someone tried to spread false instructions, the system's layered authentication would flag it immediately. If something does go wrong, the damage control teams are the ship's emergency strike force. They can isolate a compromised compartment, cut it off from the rest of the ship, and restore function. In sabotage scenarios, speed is everything. Stopping the spread of damage within minutes can be the difference between a recoverable incident and a mission kill. The alarm doesn't say something bad might be happening. It says it's happening now, and you know what to do. That certainty is crucial when 5,000 people have to act as one. When the threat passes, whether neutralized or avoided, the system winds down as quickly as it wound up. The announcing system delivers the secure from General Quarters command, and the crew returns to their duties. But the memory of the sound and the instant transformation it triggered lingers. It's a reminder that in the life of a carrier, the difference between routine and combat is only ever one alarm away. On a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, a wartime alert is not just a noise, it is the embodiment of readiness. It is a network of technology and human skill designed to pierce through chaos, unite thousands of people in an instant, and give them the time they need to protect their ship, their mission, and each other. It's the sound of a city at sea, turning as one toward the fight, and it is as much a weapon as any missile or aircraft on board. Internal defense on a carrier is never viewed in isolation. The ship is the centerpiece of a strike group, surrounded by escorts, cruisers, destroyers, and submarines, and covered by layered air and missile defenses. This external shield buys the carrier time and reduces the chance that sabotage could coincide with a successful enemy strike. But these two layers work together. Internal security ensures that even if the enemy's external attack plan fails, they can't rely on internal disruption to succeed where missiles and torpedoes couldn't. The carrier's very architecture is a weapon against sabotage. Thousands of watertight compartments and fire zones create natural containment. Redundant systems mean that even if one set of power lines, communication cables, or fuel feeds is damaged, backup routes keep the ship operating. Critical systems are often mirrored in separate compartments so that a single point of sabotage cannot knock out the capability entirely. This redundancy makes the carrier not just hard to sink from the outside, but incredibly difficult to disable from within. The psychological component is equally important. The knowledge that surveillance is constant, access is restricted, and responses are immediate creates an environment where potential saboteurs have few illusions about success. Sailors are encouraged to see themselves as part of the security system, not just passive participants. This shared responsibility builds a cultural firewall against insider threats, where reporting a suspicious act is not just permitted, but expected. During combat, these measures are amplified. Access lists are tightened, patrol frequency increases, and certain compartments are placed on double barrier security, requiring 2 independent authorizations to enter. Critical control rooms often have armed guards posted with explicit orders. No one enters without the proper credentials, regardless of rank or familiarity. These are the last human barrier before a saboteur could reach a vital system. Training underpins everything. Security drills simulate sabotage scenarios alongside traditional combat damage. Sailors practice responding to fires caused by deliberate action, shutting down compromised systems, and restoring control after communications are tampered with. The goal is to make reactions instinctive, because hesitation is a liability in an environment where seconds matter. The result of this system is a ship that can fight while under attack from without and within. Even if a hostile actor found their way into the crew, their window of opportunity would be narrow. their freedom of movement limited, and their actions quickly noticed. The carrier's layered security is designed to absorb that shock without losing operational capability. It's the maritime equivalent of an immune system, detecting, isolating, and neutralizing threats before they spread. The Navy's internal security measures exist to ensure that the theory of a well-timed act of sabotage disabling catapults, cutting power to radar systems, or disrupting flight operations never becomes reality. Compartmentalization stops the spread, surveillance catches the act, discipline and training trigger the response. Redundancy ensures that even a successful strike inside the ship won't end the fight. A U.S. aircraft carrier is designed to behave like a series of small, self-contained fortresses linked together. Each fortress is guarded, monitored, and capable of standing alone if the link is cut. That's the blueprint for survival against sabotage. No single breach, no single actor can take the whole ship down. In war, that resilience is as vital as armor or firepower, because on a carrier, the battle is fought not only against the enemy you can see, but also against the one you might not. The alarms cut through the roar of engines and the crash of combat above. On a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier mid-battle, a fire on the hangar deck, or a hull breach near the waterline are not hypothetical moments. They are anticipated, trained for, and met with a precision response that decides whether the ship survives or sinks. Damage control is not an afterthought. It is a combat function, equal in urgency to launching aircraft or firing weapons. The system that responds is fast, coordinated, and built from the ground up to contain disaster while the fight continues. The first wave into any crisis is the flying squad, the carrier's immediate rapid response team. These are sailors trained in firefighting, flood control, and emergency repair, stationed to reach any part of the ship in minutes. When the alarm sounds, they run toward the danger, hauling hoses, breathing apparatus, and shoring timber. Their job is to hit the casualty hard and fast, knocking down flames before they can spread or stemming flooding before it overwhelms a compartment. Every second they buy is another second the ship can keep fighting. Containment begins with compartmentalization. An aircraft carrier is a city at sea, but it's a city made of sealed blocks, watertight and fire-tight compartments designed to isolate damage. At the first sign of fire or flooding, hatches and doors are closed according to the ship's compartment checkoff list. It's a deliberate act, sealing the casualty away from the rest of the vessel. This buttoning up is brutal in its necessity, keeping smoke, heat, and water from turning a localized event into a ship-wide catastrophe. While the flying squad engages the front line, Damage Control Central, DCC, becomes the brain of the operation. Staffed by the damage control assistant, chief petty officers, and communications personnel, this secure space uses graphic displays, status boards, and real-time reports to map the unfolding situation. They track which compartments are secured, where smoke is moving, how water levels are changing, and where repair parties are deployed. From DCC, resources are shifted, backup teams are dispatched, and the ship's overall stability is monitored. Every decision is made with the dual goal of protecting the crew and keeping the carrier operational. Firefighting aboard a carrier is a multi-method operation. Fixed systems can flood hangar bays with foam or release halon in machinery spaces, starving a fire of oxygen. Hose teams attack directly with seawater or foam, coordinated to avoid creating steam clouds that scald rather than save. Portable extinguishers are used for electrical fires where water is deadly. There is always a focus on preventing reflash, hidden embers reigniting once the main flames are out. When the casualty is a hull breach, the battle shifts from fire to flood. Incoming seawater threatens not just the compartment, but the ship's balance and buoyancy. Damage control teams deploy submersible pumps, rig portable adductors, and use hoses to shift water overboard. Shoring crews work to stabilize bulkheads, patch holes with wooden wedges, or apply quick-setting compounds to cracks. In more serious cases, they use steel plates and strongbacks to create temporary seals against the pressure of the sea. Meanwhile, DCC calculates ballast changes, sometimes ordering controlled counterflooding on the opposite side of the ship to keep the carrier from listing dangerously. Communication is constant and structured. Repair parties report conditions to DCC in seconds, not minutes, because the difference between control and catastrophe can be measured in the rate a compartment fills with water or a fire crosses a bulkhead. These reports allow DCC to direct reinforcements, reroute power, or, in extreme cases, write off a space entirely to save the rest of the ship. The ability to execute these actions under pressure comes from relentless training. Drills are woven into the daily life of the carrier, not occasional events. Sailors practice fire hose handling, shoring construction, and damage assessment in full gear, often in simulated conditions of heat, smoke, and darkness. Flooding drills fill compartments with seawater to train teams on pump deployment and patching under real weight and pressure. Scenarios are designed to overwhelm, forcing teams to manage simultaneous crises, because in battle, fires and flooding often come together. Every sailor aboard has a role in damage control. This all-hands philosophy ensures that the ship can absorb casualties to its damage control teams and still fight on. The ship's survival depends on collective action. The culture makes it clear that no one is exempt when the alarms sound. History has proven the value of this doctrine. Carriers have survived hits that tore open decks or gutted compartments precisely because their damage control systems activated instantly and effectively. These successes were not luck. They were the direct result of a system designed for speed, coordination, and redundancy. Even in peacetime, the threat is real from accidents or equipment failures, and the procedures don't change. The complexity of a carrier's damage control system lies in its integration. Firefighting, flooding control, structural repair, and stability management are not separate disciplines. They're threads in one fabric. DCC pulls those threads together, directing them in real time so that every action supports the same goal: keep the carrier fighting. The technology is advanced, but the core is human skill. Pumps, hoses, foam generators, and status boards mean nothing without crews who can operate them instinctively, troubleshoot under pressure, and adapt when the plan changes. That's why training never stops, and why damage control readiness is inspected as rigorously as weapons readiness. The enemy in these scenarios is time, and the crews are trained to beat it. When the crisis ends, the work is not over. Damage assessment teams move in to evaluate structural integrity, restore systems, and prepare for long-term repairs. DCC compiles a detailed account of the incident, feeding lessons learned back into training, closing the loop that keeps the system sharp. A carrier under attack has two battles to fight: the one against the enemy, and the one to keep the ship alive long enough to win. Damage control wins the second battle. Without it, the first is already lost. And aboard a U.S. Navy carrier, that battle is fought with the same precision, courage, and relentlessness as any offensive action, because survival is the foundation of victory. When casualties strike during flight operations on a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, every second matters. The roar of jet engines and the pounding rhythm of catapults launching aircraft are replaced with the high-alert coordination of triage. The carrier becomes both a warship and a floating emergency hospital, shifting seamlessly into crisis mode without pausing its primary mission. This is medical triage at sea, rapid, structured, and unflinchingly focused on survival. The process begins at the battle dressing stations, or BDS, which are designated triage points spread strategically across the ship. Staffed by Navy corpsmen trained to provide immediate, life-saving interventions under combat conditions, the BDS is where the injured sailor or aircrew member's fate begins to change. Corpsmen apply tourniquets, secure airways, control bleeding, and quickly assess the severity of injuries. Each casualty is tagged according to triage categories: immediate, delayed, minimal, or expectant. In these moments, decisions are made in seconds, guided by the principle of doing the greatest good for the greatest number. Under the relentless tempo of flight ops, these stations are active triage points built for speed. Casualty routes are rehearsed so often that corpsmen and stretcher teams can navigate blindfolded if necessary. Medevac elevators, specialized lifts built to move patients rapidly between decks, become arteries pumping the wounded toward the heart of the ship's medical system. That heart is the ship's medical complex, a small, highly capable hospital with operating rooms ready for immediate surgery and intensive care units for critical care. The presence of a fully functional surgical suite at sea means that life-saving operations don't have to wait for evacuation to shore. The medical team on a carrier is formidable, with a general surgeon, anesthesiologists, flight surgeons, physician assistants, and dentists who can perform emergency maxillofacial trauma care. Corpsmen fill every gap, running labs, assisting in surgery, managing supplies, and providing bedside care. This blend of skills ensures that in a mass casualty scenario, no step of treatment is delayed for lack of expertise. Once casualties reach the casualty receiving area, prioritization becomes sharper. The team evaluates who needs immediate surgery, who can be stabilized in the ICU, and who can wait. Blood transfusions can be initiated within minutes thanks to onboard blood banks, and advanced diagnostic tools give the medical officers clarity before committing to surgical intervention. The coordination extends beyond the medical staff. The carrier's command team maintains constant communication with medical spaces, adjusting ship operations if necessary. Damage control teams ensure that medical areas are secure from fire, smoke, or flooding, while security teams manage the movement of personnel to prevent congestion in casualty corridors. In combat conditions, this coordination must happen alongside continued flight operations, meaning the ship fights and saves lives simultaneously. Mass casualty readiness is not theoretical. The medical department trains for it relentlessly, running drills that simulate aircraft mishaps, onboard explosions, or multiple casualties from enemy action. These drills are designed to push the system to its limits, testing not only speed and accuracy, but also the ability to keep calm under overwhelming pressure. Sailors across the ship, not just medical personnel, are trained in basic first aid and casualty handling, ensuring that life-saving care begins the moment an injury occurs. The mental demands on the triage team are extreme. In a scenario with multiple critically injured crew, hard choices must be made about who receives immediate surgery and who must wait. Training and established triage protocols provide the framework for action. The focus remains on maximizing survival across the entire casualty load. Even with the best facilities, evacuation remains part of the plan. If the ship can spare the resources and security conditions allow, helicopters can transfer stabilized patients to shore-based hospitals. But in many cases, the carrier itself is the highest level care the casualty will receive for days. What sets carrier medical triage apart from a hospital emergency department is the environment. Space is limited. Equipment must be secured against ship movement, and the constant vibration of engines and flight ops hums through the walls. This makes redundancy and adaptability critical. Behind every swift movement in triage is preparation. Supply inventories are meticulously maintained, and blood supply levels are tracked daily. These routines ensure that when the call comes, mass casualty inbound, no one is searching for what they need. The carrier's medical readiness is a combat multiplier. Sailors know that if they are injured, the ship can deliver world-class emergency care within minutes. This confidence allows them to focus on their duties during high-risk operations. It's about enabling the crew to operate aggressively without hesitation, knowing that the medical safety net is strong. Triage aboard a carrier is both science and discipline. It is the science of rapid assessment, surgical precision, and critical care under austere conditions. It is the discipline of rehearsed coordination and unflinching adherence to prioritization protocols. The entire process is built to absorb chaos and turn it into order. From the moment a casualty hits the deck, a chain of trained hands moves them through assessment, stabilization, and treatment. Each link is strong because each sailor in that chain knows their role and has practiced it under pressure. The result is a system that can take the worst moments of combat and respond with speed, clarity, and life-saving skill. Medical triage on a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier during flight operations is an integrated part of the ship's warfighting capability. It protects the crew, sustains the mission, and stands ready to face the unimaginable with precision and resolve. The moment an aircraft carrier enters contested waters, its ability to communicate becomes as critical as its ability to launch aircraft. Without secure, uninterrupted contact, the most powerful warship in the world can be cut off from its strike group, command authorities, and its own aircraft overhead. Cyber attacks and electronic jamming are not hypothetical threats. They are real, tested tools in modern naval warfare. When they hit, the communications team becomes the carrier's lifeline. Their job is to fight through the interference and keep the carrier connected, no matter how hard the enemy tries to blind or isolate it. The first layer of defense is the hardware itself, encrypted, frequency-hopping tactical radios. These systems leap from one frequency to another in a secret, pre-programmed pattern known only to friendly forces. This hopping happens hundreds of times per second, faster than a human can track and far beyond the reach of unsophisticated jammers. Even if an enemy locks onto one slice of the spectrum, the signal is gone before they can exploit it. Combined with strong encryption, the content of the communication is unreadable to anyone without the keys, rendering intercepted traffic useless. The carrier's communication architecture is built on multiple, redundant layers. Line-of-sight radios handle local coordination with nearby ships and aircraft. Tactical data, links like Link 16, connect the carrier into a shared battlespace picture. Satellite communications link the carrier to command authorities thousands of miles away. Each layer can operate independently, so if jamming takes out one channel, another can carry the message. Even the satellite systems themselves are designed to be jam-resistant, using narrow beams, anti-jam waveforms, and encryption to keep the link alive in the face of deliberate interference. When adversaries try to flood the airwaves with noise, the carrier's adaptive networking systems come into play. If one path is blocked, the system automatically reroutes messages through other nodes, like water flowing around a rock. This self-healing capability means a single jammed frequency or damaged antenna doesn't cut the carrier off. It simply finds another route. Detection and adaptation happen in real time, thanks to electronic countermeasures, ECCM. These systems actively sense jamming. If a jammer is detected, ECCM functions adjust power output, change modulation schemes, or shift frequencies to punch through the interference. In some cases, the carrier's own electronic warfare teams can target the jammer itself, degrading its ability to disrupt communications. This duel of signal and counter-signal is continuous. Even the most advanced systems can be undermined if physical and procedural security fails. Communication spaces are tightly controlled. Physical sabotage is a known threat, so access logs, surveillance, and strict compartmentalization protect the carrier's comms gear. If all else fails, crews can revert to alternate methods, visual signals with flags or lights. These are last resort measures, but they remain in the playbook for a reason. History shows that in war, redundancy saves lives. The cyber defense side is just as critical. The carrier's internal networks are constantly monitored by intrusion detection systems and cybersecurity teams trained to spot abnormal patterns. If a breach is detected, affected systems can be isolated in seconds, cutting off the attacker's reach while backup systems take over. Segmented networks mean that losing one part of the system doesn't compromise the entire ship. None of this works without people who know how to use it under pressure. Communications teams drill for jamming scenarios the same way pilots drill for emergency landings. They practice switching between frequencies and networks on command, executing pre-established protocols known as PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. So every message has multiple paths to reach its destination. These drills simulate worst-case conditions, total loss of satellite link, wideband jamming, or a suspected cyber intrusion mid-operation. The goal is simple. When the attack comes, there is no hesitation, no guesswork, just execution. A delayed message could mean a strike package flies into a trap, a submarine goes untracked, or a threat goes unanswered. A single point failure is unacceptable. By having multiple lines of communication, multiple technologies, and multiple trained operators ready to act, the carrier ensures that no single attack can silence it entirely. In modern naval combat, the ability to keep talking while under attack is as much a weapon as any missile or fighter jet. The enemy knows this, which is why cyber and electronic attacks are often the first blows struck in a confrontation. But the layered defense aboard a US Navy carrier means those blows land on a target that is already braced, shielded, and ready to counterpunch. When the noise clears and the signals keep flowing, it sends a message the enemy cannot ignore. You can try to blind us. You can try to deafen us, but you will not cut us off. Every frequency hop, every encrypted packet, every backup link is part of the carrier's voice in battle. As long as that voice is heard, clear, secure, and unbroken, the ship remains in the fight, commanding, coordinating, and controlling the seas around it. In the unforgiving logic of naval warfare, that is what turns survival into victory. In the middle of a contested sea, the captain of a US aircraft carrier directs strike waves while the ship itself is under enemy fire. This is not a matter of simply giving the order to launch. It's a real-time, high-stakes orchestration of men, machines, and information, all woven into a combat environment where the margin for error is measured in seconds. The captain's role is to synchronize every element of the strike operation while ensuring the carrier's survival. The heart of this coordination is the Combat Information Center, CIC. This sealed nerve center deep within the ship is packed with radar displays, tactical consoles, and teams of watchstanders. The CIC consolidates data from the carrier's own sensors, escort ships' radars, and airborne early warning aircraft. It updates the captain on enemy positions, surface and air threats, missile trajectories, and electronic warfare activity. The captain cannot afford to make decisions on outdated information. The CIC's constant feed ensures that every command is based on the freshest possible tactical picture. The captain is not operating in isolation. The Composite Warfare Command, CWC, structure governs the entire carrier strike group. The captain of the carrier works with multiple warfare commanders, ensuring that the ship's operational decisions align perfectly with the larger battle plan. Under enemy fire, the ability to pivot instantly between defense and offense depends on this shared structure. Every strike wave begins with the Air Tasking Order, ATO. This document specifies targets, weapon loads, and time on target windows. Executing the ATO under fire means threading a needle. Launch timing must be tight enough to overwhelm defenses, but flexible enough to react to new threats. In a missile-saturated environment, the captain might have to delay a launch by seconds to allow the ship's defensive systems to neutralize an inbound threat and then immediately push the strike package out before the window closes. Secure communications are lifelines in this environment. The captain maintains constant contact with the air wing, the CIC, escort ships, and the strike group commander through encrypted, frequency-hopping radios and secure data links. A single gap in communication could mean a strike wave arrives over target without knowing enemy air defenses have shifted. The captain's team monitors and verifies every link, ensuring no decision is made in the dark. Delegation is critical. While the captain holds the ultimate authority, specialized officers handle the details in their respective spheres. The captain integrates their inputs into a single operational flow, synchronizing the strike's offensive timing with the carrier's defensive posture and maneuvering plan. Maneuvering the carrier under fire is itself an art. The captain works with the strike group to position the ship within protective layers of escorts and air defenses. Every turn of the rudder has implications for both survival and offensive output. In extreme cases, the carrier might need to sprint at high speed to dodge a missile salvo, then swing back into the wind minutes later to recover returning aircraft low on fuel. The captain's judgment in these moments can decide whether both the ship and its strike group maintain combat power or are forced into retreat. This ability to coordinate under pressure is not improvised. It is built on training and drills that replicate the chaos of combat. These drills ingrain responses so deeply that, under real fire, orders are executed instantly and without confusion. The captain can trust that when he calls for a defensive counterattack or a strike launch in the middle of a threat engagement, every station will perform as trained. When the moment comes to launch under fire, the choreography is relentless. The flight deck crew races to arm, fuel, and position aircraft in precise order. The shooter catapult officers coordinate with the bridge to ensure the ship's heading is optimal. The captain stands at the nexus, ensuring the ship's maneuvering, air defense, and strike operations do not conflict, but instead reinforce each other. If a threat emerges mid-launch, the captain might order the ship to turn hard for defensive coverage, trusting the deck crew to adapt without losing launch tempo. Even after the strike wave is airborne, the captain's job is far from over. Returning aircraft may need to divert if the carrier is forced to maneuver. Combat search and rescue might be needed for downed pilots. Throughout it all, the captain balances the need to keep strike power flowing with the unbreakable priority of keeping the carrier in the fight. Every decision is layered with consequence. Launch too early, an aircraft risk flying into unsoftened air defenses. Turn too little, and you risk the ship itself. This is why the captain's role is as much about judgment as it is about procedure. The captain's chair is where the CIC's data, the CWC structure's alignment, the precision of the ATO, the resilience of secure communications, the expertise of delegated officers, and the agility of ship maneuvering all converge. There is no room for hesitation, only a constant loop of assess, decide, execute. Under fire, the carrier remains both shield and sword, its survival and offensive reach tied directly to the captain's ability to manage chaos with discipline. That is how a U.S. aircraft carrier, even when the missiles are inbound, can still send its strike waves into the fight and bring them home. When a fully armed U.S. aircraft carrier strikes back, the message is deafening, not just in the roar of jet engines or the thunder of precision munitions, but in the way it rewires the enemy's perception of the fight itself. This is a psychological blow that shakes confidence, erodes resolve, and forces a reassessment of the entire conflict. This is the moment when an enemy realizes the United States can reach them anywhere, at any time, with overwhelming force. The first and most visceral effect is demoralization of enemy forces. When dozens of strike aircraft launch in coordinated waves, hitting multiple targets with surgical precision, the shock runs deeper than the destruction itself. The realization settles in. If the carrier is still afloat, it can keep doing this again and again for days or weeks without pause. That knowledge corrodes morale faster than any single battlefield loss. Part of the psychological punch comes from the perception of invincibility that a modern supercarrier projects. These ships are floating fortresses, bristling with defensive systems. Even after taking damage, they can continue launching airstrikes. Watching a carrier absorb an attack and then respond without hesitation sends an unmistakable message. Not only did the attempt to hurt it fail, but it triggered a counterblow of far greater magnitude. That dynamic breeds a sense of futility. If the most concentrated effort can't stop it, what can? This sense of futility intensifies the pressure on enemy command and leadership. Leaders know that a carrier strike isn't a single punch. It's sustained pressure that can be applied day and night. The deterrent effect of such a response is immediate. For enemies contemplating further aggression, the visual of a fully armed carrier is a warning written in steel and fire. It says clearly, any act of hostility will invite a rapid, coordinated, and decisive answer. The launch of carrier aircraft signals that retaliation is underway and unstoppable. That knowledge forces adversaries to think twice, often preventing future attacks before they can be planned. Carrier strikes also have a global stage effect. When the first images of the retaliation surface, the world is watching. Allies see proof of commitment. Enemies see proof of capability. International media magnifies the event, and with that comes pressure on the enemy's political leadership from both foreign governments and their own people. This global attention can spark internal dissent. questioning whether provoking such a response was worth the cost. The impact on enemy civilian populations can be equally significant. The awareness that a carrier can launch attacks from beyond the horizon instills a persistent sense of vulnerability. This psychological strain can erode public support for the conflict. What makes this psychological effect so potent is the fusion of presence and action. A carrier strike group doesn't need to fire a shot to exert influence. Its very arrival off a hostile coast changes the calculus. But when it does strike, it transforms from a looming threat into a proven force of destruction. This leap from potential to kinetic is a moment of high psychological impact, cementing the belief that resisting is both costly and likely futile. The sensory overload of a carrier strike amplifies fear. Unlike sporadic air raids, carrier operations can be continuous, their tempo dictated by operational needs. That persistence is mentally exhausting for those on the receiving end who never know when or where the next wave will come. On a strategic level, the symbolism of the carrier compounds the psychological weight. The carrier is the centerpiece of American naval power. When it strikes back, it's not just a ship firing weapons. It's the projection of national will, backed by unmatched logistics, technology, and training. This symbolism can be as intimidating as the strike itself. This is why adversaries often attempt to downplay or deny the effects of a carrier strike in public, even as they adjust their strategy in private. Yet on the ground and in command centers, the reality is inescapable. A carrier that can strike today can strike tomorrow, and the day after, until its objectives are met. The anticipation of such a comprehensive retaliation can induce hesitation and even paralysis in decision-making. The psychological chain reaction set off by a carrier's strike back ripples outward to allies, neutral states, and the broader international audience that sees the U.S. exercising decisive military power. Ultimately, the power of a fully armed U.S. aircraft carrier striking back lies in its ability to combine physical destruction with strategic intimidation. The bombs and missiles may destroy infrastructure and equipment, but the real victory is often won in the enemy's mind, convincing them that resistance will only bring greater losses, that their leadership cannot protect them, and that the costs of continuing the fight outweigh any potential gains. This is the essence of psychological warfare at sea, executed not in secret, but in full view of the world. In every major conflict where carriers have been used to strike back, the pattern is the same. Morale dips, decision-making falters, and the pressure to end hostilities increases. The carrier is more than a ship. It is a sustained psychological presence, a reminder that the U.S. can project decisive force anywhere, and a symbol that the consequences of aggression will be met with overwhelming retaliation. In the mind of the enemy, that understanding can be the beginning of defeat, long before the shooting stops.